what was one moment in your early career that you think might have felt insignificant or small at the time, but really ended up changing everything?
Probably to answer your question, what seemed like an insignificant thing was actually the working with a particular mentor, working together kind of unlocked or opened a door that I wasn't even thinking, I didn't even know existed.
Hello, I'm Alexander, and welcome to TrailHeads Titans. Join me as we learn from the Titans who paved the way. In this episode, my guest is Mr. Dominic Barton. He is the current chairman of Rio Tinto. Thanks, Mr. Dominic, for joining me today.
It's wonderful to be on your program.
Could you please introduce yourself and share a bit about what you do?
Sure. I'm 62 years old. I'm Canadian. I was actually born in Uganda, but I live in the UK now, and I do a portfolio of things. I'm the chairman of Rio Tinto, which is a large mining company that operates in 35 countries. I'm the chairman of Leapfrog Investments, which is a private equity impact firm focused on helping build businesses for people primarily with less than $11 earnings a day. And then I do a range of other sort of advisory work. And I've sort of had, I guess, previous careers. I first with McKinsey for about 35 years, where I then was the global managing partner for about 9 years. And then I was the Canadian ambassador to China for about 3 years, a few years back. So that's kind of my background.
Would you mind elaborating a bit more about what you do in Leapfrog Investment?
Yeah, in Leapfrog, I'm the chair. So that what that basically means is there's a CEO who's the founder, Andy Cooper, who's a wonderful leader. And there's a partnership group that actually are out there looking for business ideas to invest behind. And then we also spend time raising capital to be able to provide the funds to support these businesses to help the people. So in that, I'm involved with making sure we have the right governance, the sort of the strategy, the risk management, the talent programs in place, and helping the partner team and the CEO, who are all terrific leaders. And then it's helping with things like some of the fundraising that we do, some of our key relationships with investors. It's helping some of the businesses as they want to grow fast, or that we actually, there may be a strategic buyer, or they may want to IPO, helping a bit in that process. So that's sort of the nature of what I do in that particular role.
Before becoming the chairman of a global mining company, what was one moment in your early career that you think might have felt insignificant or small at the time, but really ended up changing everything?
Well, I very much wasn't sure what I wanted to do early on in my career, because one of the challenges is it's difficult to know what's out there. And so when I was in graduate school in Oxford and I was trying to think about what I wanted to do, I kind of applied to what I call traditional jobs for someone who did economics. I applied to the World Bank, the IMF, other multilateral institutions. I didn't even get a reply, nothing back. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to pursue an academic career. I was interested, but I thought there was something else there. But I didn't have a business background, and my parents weren't business people. So at that time, I joined McKinsey. I didn't even know who McKinsey was. They were just recruiting for unusual people, if you will. They weren't recruiting for just people from business school. And I thought I would go there for 2 years, because when I found out what they did, they work with a lot of different companies. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And to some extent, when I finished some careers, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. It's sort of a journey. But probably to answer your question, what seemed like an insignificant thing was actually I think working with a particular mentor, Sun Yen Say. He was a mentor of mine in McKinsey, and he's the one that helped open me up towards Asia, because I didn't really know much about Asia. And I didn't think about that. I don't think he thought about that when we first got together. But that working together kind of unlocked or opened a door that I wasn't even thinking, I didn't even know existed. So working with that mentor, there's many other mentors too, but with him, that kind of opened it up for me.
Some of the other guests I've had on Trailheads and Titans, such as Jennifer Maki, also mentioned about mentors, and I think it's really interesting because as you mentioned, it really helps to guide you into all the different like places that you can go, because you said that your mentor led you to explore Asia, right? So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just to Jimmy, to just say a couple of points on that. I think mentors are extremely important, and one of the things I would teach my younger self is work on that harder earlier. The more people you meet, and it doesn't have to be a long meeting, it can be 10 minutes, will open up vistas that you may not otherwise think about. So I probably have hundreds of mentors, actually, I've accumulated over time that have helped me hugely and still do, or even just words of wisdom they had. But being a mentor, you find mentors. Mentors don't find you. You need to find them. And mentoring doesn't mean you have to have regular, 2-hour meetings a week, like sitting down at the table and they tell you. It can be literally a 10-minute interaction that can transform you. So I just to reinforce the point that one of your other interviews, I think mentors are extremely important.
What's the best overall piece of advice that you've ever received? Something that you still think about and it still has helped you and affects you today?
It was some advice I received from the former Minister of Finance in Canada, Jim Flaherty. And I asked him the question, what would you teach your younger self, your 21-year-old self, if you could? And he said, I would learn to have a microscope in one eye and a telescope in the other and not get a headache. And obviously, literally, he didn't mean having a microscope and telescope, but the idea is you have to think about the short term, what's happening, how do I react, how do I deal with an issue, how do I capture an opportunity? But at the same time, you have to think in a long-term horizon, a 10 to 20, 30-year horizon. You need to do both. And most people do one or the other. If you're just short-term focused, you miss the long-term opportunities and strategy of what you could be building out. If you just think long-term, you may not survive. So that I've always come back to that advice that he gave me, and it wasn't even advice, it was sort of advice for himself, if you will. But I found that very helpful in all the roles, as a CEO, as a chair, as a father, as just a human being trying to figure out life. The microscope and the telescope, I think, is a good metaphor.
And nowadays, mining isn't often the first career that comes to mind for young people. Like, for example, myself in school, they don't really even mention it. They do more like lawyers, doctors, etc. But what do you think that they're missing about the real value or purpose of the industry?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're being polite. I think mining seems a bit of a Stone Age industry, right? Dirty, burning the landscape, digging holes, kind of that type of thing. And I think that's not correct, but it's our fault. It's not anyone else's fault. I think the industry needs to do a much better job of explaining what we do. But for example, you think about the room you're sitting in and this this computer that we're working across to do it, this phone that I have with me, my watch, it's all metal. It's materials that you need to be, we wouldn't have it if we weren't mining. It's critical to our world. And one of the things that actually attracted to me to Rio Tinto was the purpose, which is to provide the materials that the world needs, particularly for the energy transition. To deal with climate change, we need iron ore, we need copper, we need aluminum, and we need lithium, or there'll be no energy. There'll be no energy transition. So it's a vital industry which has a lot of skills. Because the other part of it, people think of mining as it's people with pickaxes sort of digging holes, right? And the mining is much more sophisticated than that. There are a whole wide range of skills. So exploration, the AI that's being used in the data analytics to be able to find resources, the manufacturing processes. Some of the largest freighter fleets in the world are owned by mining companies, anthropologists that work in mining companies. The corporate finance sophistication is very high because you're dealing with 30 to 50-year projects. How do you value them? How do you deal with geopolitical risk? So it's a very diverse, sophisticated, important business of which we do a terrible job explaining what we do, but it's actually it's critical, and that's why I actually find it exciting, because I think there's a lot of upside opportunity in being able to unleash that.
In such a high pressure and global role, how do you stay grounded or keep your perspective balanced?
That's a great question. I think there's a couple of aspects. One is that, and I would call it not getting CEO-itis. We know what that means. Because sometimes if you're leading, you start to take yourself more seriously than you should. You start to think that all your ideas are the best ideas. Your jokes are the funniest. Everyone laughs at your jokes. They're actually maybe not laughing at your jokes. It's just because you're in a position of power. And so I think it's very important to, as you said, be grounded. And what I have tried to do in the different aspects is, one is just your networks. I have a wide range of friends. I don't just hang around with other CEOs. I have a lot of friends who, some of them are farmers. They have a dairy farm. They're fishermen. A lot of my early career was very manual labor. I worked on a salmon boat, fishing boat. I worked in a sawmill. I helped build a road in northern British Columbia. And those were with real people. And I learned a lot from that. So I have a lot of friends who could not care less what I do, or what sports is something I love, because you're with a whole range of different people. You're with people that support your team, and you're from all different backgrounds. That sort of brings people together. It's not an elite thing or anything like that. And I think the other element is what I just call recovery. Like if you're going to lead in an organization and be a CEO or a chair, it's intense. It's 24/7. 24 hours, 7 days a week. But what's very important is you also spend time for downtime, to recover, to read, to exercise, to disconnect from the work. Because if all you do is work, you'll find yourself not being grounded. But it takes discipline, and I don't think I've done that very well. By the way, I think you need friends who will challenge you and say, "What are you doing? Like, I don't understand. What are you? You're getting carried away." You need, it could be your spouse that does that. It could be your children. But I think it's very important to be doing other things than just your job, and relate to everyday type of aspects. Otherwise, you'll get CEO-itis.
Yeah, some of the other CEOs and guests that I had on Trailheads and Titans mentioned that they had hobbies such as exercising or watching sports. Do you think there's any hobby in specific or sport that you like to watch that you think has also helped you get rid of the CEO-itis?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is it is sports. I love sports, all sports. My favorite ones are hockey, ice hockey. I would love watching ice hockey. I'm a huge Montreal Canadiens fan. Um, I like soccer, like the Premier League. I love going to games with people. Australian rules football. I've become a very big fan. Yeah, so sports is very a big part of that for me. But I also like I read a lot. Reading is a hobby, if you will, but I try and read not just business books. So I'm a big fan of the New York Review of Books, which is it's a magazine that basically gives you a broad range of topics that I otherwise wouldn't read, but in a synthesized way. It's sort of synthesized books on art, sports, politics, philosophy, sometimes business, and that just keeps you wide read, if you will. And I also like doing things with universities. That's the other thing. I've always had involvement with universities in my time, either teaching, or now I'm actually learning. I'm taking a philosophy course right now with some and so forth, which I'm enjoying. Um, so I like being with young people to hear what they're thinking about, what they're excited about. I learn a lot from young people, especially on technology. So I have a sort of diverse set of hobbies, I guess, and running is probably my favorite sport. I used to do rowing a lot, but I'm not reliable enough to be able to be in a crew. That was my favorite sport, like to be in. But I run because you can always, whenever you go somewhere, you can run. In that, you just need your running shoes and some shorts. Um, so those are the kind of things I try and do.
Do you think there's any book in specific that you think has helped you just in general with your both your business aspect and personal aspect?
Oh, there's so many books. I mean, I read a lot because I get, it's like a source of nourishment. I could, I've just got book. I like real books, if you will. I'm not a Kindle person, more because I like to write. I like to write notes in books. But there's it depends on the topic, right? There's a range of books that have influenced me. One is a book by Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone. Sounds like a strange book. He's a Harvard professor talking about the importance of social capital. People knowing each other, neighbors knowing each other, people from all different parts of society, like working together, playing together, and so forth, and the importance of that for economic growth. That was a very important book for me. And also about in organizations, how you build social capital. That means people know each other and trust each other.
This is one of the last questions, but when you think about the legacy that you want to leave, not just professionally, but personally, what is the thing that matters the most to you?
I think it's at the end of the day, it's how many leaders have you helped build or create. That's the legacy. Because I think those organizations that build the most leaders are the ones that are the most successful. And so I hope that there's people that I've helped grow into leaders in some way or form. That's the legacy for me, is the number of leaders that are out there, because they're going to have a long career to be able to build and do things, and hopefully create other leaders to be able to do things. It's at the end of the day, it's all about leadership. So I hope, that's what I think anyhow. And I think if I can have grown or built as many leaders as I possibly can, that's my objective.
Thanks for tuning into Trailheads and Titans. A huge thank you to Mr. Dominic Barton for sharing your journey and insights. Your story will inspire many people. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow Trailheads and Titans for more conversations with leaders who are blazing new trails. Until next time.